Well, welcome everyone. I am Chris Ansoff with Tables for Two, and I am excited to be here with Stevenson, who you're part of Puzzlerarium, Spark Forge. There's so much you have going on. I guess if you can you give just a quick overview of Puzzlerarium and what you're doing with that?
Of course. I'm effectively a working artist slash game designer. My primary claim to fame is Puzzlarium, which was the first escape rooms to open in San Diego back in 2014, and something between the 12th to the 26th escape room to open in the United States, depending on who you ask. Um, but been running that for about 10 years. And we also run San Diego's biggest board game convention, Game Diego, as well as events, activations through Spark Forge and various other ideas and concepts. Basically, I make games that you play in the physical world is kind of where my niche is. Although I do have some published board games as well.
That's awesome. So you mentioned Game Diego. I that just happened in this past year.
Mhm.
Can you give a little more details of where and when and what happened there?
Yeah, sure. So Game Diego is a convention that I've been running for about 2.5-ish years now. We run it 2 to 3 times a year. So it's a seasonal convention. And I ran it because San Diego used to have like about four or so dedicated board game conventions. And then, the big plague hit. And now us here in the after times, unfortunately, there are substantially fewer. And by fewer, I mean none. Uh, there do exist, of course, still slowly coming back. Various small board game cons, well, various small nerd cons that often have board game components. But I am trying to recreate a space for the sorts of large games that you would have a hard time drawing together from things like Comic-Con or other conventions are focused on a lot of things. So, um, with the help of Steve over at SCon, I now have access to a massive board game library and
He
about
does
twice a
have
year.
quite the library, doesn't he?
He is terrifying. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody in the county that has a bigger collection than him. I think his last count was something like 7,000 games.
Gosh.
Uh, it's scary. Frankly, I actually have now been bequeathed a brand new collection. I mean, I don't know if I can turn the camera to show the giant pile next to me, but um, I now have over 350 of them just because that is his um that is his offcut.
Oh my gosh.
He sneezed a bit and I wound up with that many.
Well, that's fantastic.
Uh,
Fantastic. So when is the next Game Diego going to be?
Currently scheduling that right now. We're
Okay.
hoping for probably quarter 2 of this year.
Okay.
Um, I might actually be running a crowdfunder for it soon.
Oh, cool. Where do you usually have it?
So we've been starting to set things up to Handerly, and up in Hotel Circle. They are have been very welcoming to indie conventions.
Excellent. Now, I did notice in looking through some of the website, you have a whole thing about this 400 square foot board game system that you built for a convention. And I was just fascinated just by what all the details you had to do to get this done. Why? I know you can't say who the company asked for it. What did they want it for? Was this just a convention in Vegas where they wanted something a whole bunch of people could do, or?
Yeah, yeah. That was in 2023. Zooming back just a little bit and doing the shortest possible form of this because you there's a blog post I made about this, which I think you
Right.
probably found.
Right.
Um, it's about 5,000 words, and it's the shortest possible way I can describe what this thing is, and how it went. Uh, I'll be making a YouTube video about it soon, honestly, because
Oh, excellent. Because I'll say that just I felt that the blog just hit sort of the tips of the iceberg.
yeah, it's more the case that it's one of those things where it's like I put up the blog and I spent like several months on it, and then I realized, oh wait, this is just a script for a video. So uh, I'm editing my current video on a puzzle box that I made for a different convention. So like a puzzle box that like you could pop open because I've got a workshop where I make those sorts of things. And once that video is done, which has been in the heavy edits for the last week and a half and should be up tomorrow or else, um, I will begin work on the video for that giant board game. But pulling back a bit to it, it's called Game Frame, and it is a monster. So yeah, it's 144 square foot electronic, computer controlled, pressure sensitive disco floor board game system.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and it basically came from the conversation went like this. Ring a ring, hello. Hi, are you the guys that made this game called The Floor is Lava? A 15 by 30-foot board game that you installed in Hillcrest and have a couple of installations around the world about. Uh, why, yes, it is a game we've had. Cool. We work for a client who is a very large tech company who you all know who they are, but for some reason, even though this was a public event, I'm not allowed to say which one it is, but think of a big one. It works. Uh, they would like a copy as a mobile installation. Well, we don't really do that. And also, ew. And they were like, well, what if lots of money? Um, and to which I was like, okay, I guess. And then they were like, actually, here's a TikTok. Can you make this instead? Halfway through the month-long negotiation. Um, to
Ooh,
which my to which my response was, "Oh, okay." Um, uh, thus began 77 days from here's a TikTok to deliver this to Vegas. Um, I had a team of me and one other programmer, and that was about it. We had random friends that were hired towards the end to help just get production moving, but that included prototyping, software, testing, engineering, the works. This entire conversation could be about just that project on its own, hence why there'll be a separate video on that coming out soon.
okay.
Uh,
Fantastic. Because I'll say that was one thing that really struck my eye was like you've been doing all these different gaming things. Like you mentioned the lava game, and you say that's now there it's installed in Hillcrest somewhere?
so it was, and
Oh,
then COVID hit. Unfortunately it is no longer. That being said, there are still two active installations, one in Vegas and one in the Netherlands.
in the Netherlands. How did
Mm-hmm.
it end up in the Netherlands?
During the height of the escape room craze, the height is 2018's. This was 2017, 16, so a little bit before then. We were contacted by an escape room company that wanted to commission a copy of it. And so we flew to the Netherlands and we installed a copy of The Floor is Lava, which is a hidden roles and social deduction game for between 7 to 28 players at once.
Wow.
Yep. And it is based off of Two Rooms and a Boom. Um,
Two
uh,
rooms and a boom?
Two Rooms and a Boom, the game of, do I have it immediate? Well, okay.
Sorry, I'm just confused by that.
No, 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 no. So this game, um,
Ah, okay.
this is by Tuesday Night Games, and was published a while ago by Sean McCoy and Alan Gurdon and Alan Girding, uh, who make a bunch of very good games. The Floor is Lava kind of plays sort of like it, but not really. But it had took that as a base. Um, Basically, everybody is in a 15 by 30-foot room full of floating islands on a lake of lava, and they're actual islands you stand on. Um,
So
and
is it
base
with water or?
with rubber chips,
Oh, okay. Okay.
um, with rubber foam lava,
Gotcha.
um,
Gotcha. Okay.
and you're all on padded islands in socks. And basically half the people and the islands are connected via lines, sort of like in Pandemic or other like node-based games. And the idea, at first glance, it looks like a children's romper game, but actually it's really complicated. From The rules are simple, but to win is hard.
Right.
Basically, half the people in the room are on your team, half the people are not on your team, and nobody knows who's who. Yeah. So you have a chip. One side says whether you're on team red or black, and on the other side has your special power. Like most social deduction games, you've got special powers and abilities, but everybody has a power. Um, so it's a little bit like Blood on the Clock Tower,
Mhm.
because you know the distribution of what the powers are and what powers are in play and what they do. But anyone can lie about anything they've got. And you can only show them your token and proving who you are, what team you're on, if you are on the same physical island as them, i.e., within striking range of them, because physical violence is permitted.
Oh, so you can push people off, basically.
You can hip check people into the lava. The entire room is heavily padded, so we didn't really have any injuries. But over time, islands sink, causing people to like scrunched into smaller and smaller and smaller groups, battle royale style. The game is played in three 90-second rounds, and if you die by obviously touching the lava, um, you get to go into the other room and vote on terrible things to happen to the players still alive. So while there is player elimination, each round is 90 seconds and there are three rounds.
So are you in any way considering resurrecting that here in San Diego?
I would love to. Unfortunately, that is waiting on me getting a facility again. And that in turn is waiting on me able to get resources back to reopen a facility.
Right.
Right now, we're doing events and temporary installation things because being an independent artist is hard. Uh,
Yeah.
but basically, pending getting a new location that we can actually make work, maybe. The problem with the floor is level from a business perspective is that if it was running all the time, then it absolutely is financially viable. Problem is that you have to have it running all the time. And
Yeah.
how often do you get 7 to 28 people of your friends in the same place at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's replayable, unlike most escape rooms and other things. And people do that. But wild statistic about escape rooms is that by our data and from what we've been able to discover, about um about 88% of people who do an escape room never do another one, even if they had a 5-star experience.
Interesting.
Because
I
they've
know I've done more
done
than one, so I'm not.
uh-huh. Now the 12% that do more than one escape room tend to do much more than two.
Right.
So like there are people who are like, I did all of them by doing one, and then,
Oh,
oh wow, what a cool concept. Let's do a bunch.
yeah. Interesting. So if you don't mind, I'm going to shift. I'd love to jump back to what led you into being into this whole field. I mean, did you at 5 years old go, this is what I want to do, or how did you sort of evolve into the being this such creative and innovative person?
Well, honestly, for me, it's actually a very simple straight line trajectory. Um, I I didn't always want to be a game designer specifically, although I was always making games when I was like 6 and 7 and 8. I was making little games here and there. But the trajectory is actually a pretty straight line. literally since age like 10 or 11, I've been wanting to own a theme park. Um, Now, obviously, they're not really hiring for theme park owners um, these days, and so you got to make your own. Games are my expression of being able to create an amusement space of some description or other. And so I was and still am on this trajectory of trying to effectively create a giant themed space and location in which people can explore alternate versions of social dynamics and rules and explore other parts of themselves and others. Because it's my understanding that through play, you can learn a lot more about the very complicated inner workings of social dynamics, rules, norms, and your own cognition.
Very much so. So, so do you have already sort of a rough design of this theme park? Of, or are you just, it's something that's constantly evolving where you're like, oh, I got this other idea that I want to add to it.
So I actually, at all points in time throughout my from 10 years old to now, have had a design that if you had given me X dollars, I would have enacted, and that is true still today as it was then. The plan itself obviously has changed as I've learned more about what is logistically possible, what the market is probably going to hold and saturate, where my personal interests are, and what is likely to actually like be fun
Hmm.
and enjoyable. So like for example, 10-year-old me would have made a roller coaster, current me would not. Um
Is it you just don't like roller coasters now, or?
roller coasters are the best, but like let's be real here. The last new theme park to open in the United States was 55 years ago.
Really?
Um, there are no new theme parks, and there never will be again. Because literally every single square foot of the continental US has been spoken for by local ordinances. Uh,
Interesting.
so it is straight up impossible to create new big theme parks. You have to buy one that already exists.
Is that because with everything being bought up, they're like, you this area is not spec'd for a theme park? Is that
That is literally the case in a lot of jurisdictions, but also the case that, like, straight up, there are NIMBYs everywhere who are like, oh, ew, a theme park in my backyard? That
wow.
sound, they'd make noise, there'd be traffic, and also I'm old and I hate fun. Um, for pretty much all of it. So no, my current I say theme park, but what I really mean is more like a themed entertainment space, similar to something like what Meow Wolf is currently making
Mhm.
or Wonder Spaces, an enclosed internal space that is somewhere between because I think that right now we as a entertainment society could really there's really a niche for something that's bigger than an escape room but smaller than a full scale theme park. And I feel
Well,
like that.
I'm fascinated by all the different things you created that are like I haven't I don't know if we have time to go into it, like the hearsay game,
Mhm,
and that sounds like it's a larger group type game,
mhm.
and and then you have Easter Ween.
Yeah, Easterween was a very strange experiment which I am keen to replicate but is special. Easterween's literally just an adult Easter egg hunt. um,
Awesome.
and that is not my idea, but I did pull it off a couple of times.
So
uh,
what did you have, like a big building and you just had eggs hidden, but it's also like slightly like an escape room, right? Because you're having to
yeah.
solve puzzles to get to the eggs. Is that right?
Yeah. The we had access to the art center in downtown, and which is 5 stories of this historical building that's got all these passages, nooks, and crannies, and we hid about 1,000 eggs
Wow.
all throughout it, and hid them by an adult for adults. So you go into a room that has hundreds of eggs, and you don't see a single one.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
Um, and it was a lot of fun because the thing is that like adults still do want the Chuck E. Cheese experience of walking up with a giant armload of something and spending it all on like goodies, except that we had like good chocolate.
Yeah,
Um, the uh, but with regards to like mega games and things along those lines, yeah, that we absolutely building in those lines. Uh, to my knowledge, um we are the only group in California actively creating mega games still.
that's excellent.
Which yeah, for those that don't know, mega games are large scale board games for between 20 on the low end to a 300 on the high end. For us, its averages around 80 people all playing the same game at the same time.
Excellent. And that's part of, I notice it's the Unusual Game Society meetup group. Is that what you,
Yeah, that one's being wound down a bit. And Meetup has a thing where it's kind of difficult to access people's stuff, and they've been hiking up things. The primary way that I get people to learn about my events is via my mailing list.
so, and that's
So
the newsletter that they can sign up for on your website.
yes, and that is the primary and most reliable way of both of learning about what I'm doing, because I always tell those people first. And I'm also not subject to the whims of a large tech corporation, which is nice.
Yeah, I can see how that can be very useful. Well, I feel like we're trying to keep this within a sort of a 30-minute time, and this has been awesome. But I'd love to maybe get together and as you get your video going on the whole sort of game system that the floor 400 square foot board thing, I think
Mhm.
it would be fun to do a whole nother session just going over all of what you went with that because that to me was what an adventure you had on learning a lot in a very short period of time. So yeah, you're like, yeah, I don't ever want to have to do that again.
I really, really don't.
Yeah,
I well, here's legitimately double the time, little more budget would have been peak existence for
yeah,
me. I that kind of thing, sure, absolutely. 77 days. Maybe not.
yeah. Well, I just
Anyways.
I mean I've read through some of the bits and I was just like when you're hitting a lot of these technical issues of what did we use for a tile, 77 days isn't you got a lot of testing and figuring it out and like that's and then waiting for people to
Mm-hmm.
respond and then they got to ship it to you and I'm like that's
Mm-hmm.
eating into 40-year days and then you got to make the thing work. So,
Yeah,
but I'd love
we
to
didn't.
understand the gameplay too, because that's the one thing I don't think I fully sort of
Yeah.
grok.
I'm actually rather pleased with the gameplay on that. One of my special abilities is that, given a very short period of time and weird constraints, I can make a pretty fun game pretty quickly. My
That's
published game,
awesome.
yeah, my published game Bajillions, I actually got the finished design for it done in 4 days
Wow.
from conception to completion.
So real
And
quick, how
then,
many published games do you have?
well, technically, if we're talking about like, ooh, big box, go buy it.
Yeah.
That's just one. That would be Bajillions. Um, and which was published internationally.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. And is that, I assume you can find that on Amazon and other places?
you used to be able to find it on Amazon. I am now but it's been out of print for about a year and a half now. I am the purveyor of the last 10 copies.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so if you want one, you got to contact me directly. That being said, if I can get enough spin on it, I'm going to try to self-publish again because it's quite a good game.
Excellent.
Um, Uh, I have a few other ones that I'm shopping around to publishers, but that's not an active thing I'm focusing on because it's kind of hard to make money making board games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a working artist, I have to uh, go after things that are going to hopefully bring home the bacon.
So you do anything sort of artistically sort of outside the gaming world that you're also working on?
Well, I mean, sorta. Up here, that is a board game table that's also a chandelier.
That is cool.
Yeah, I can actually pull. I can pull a bunch of ropes and bring it down and turn it into an actual like full-on woodworking table. I take woodworking commissions and build things along those lines. I'm a big fan of installation interaction art.
Okay.
Uh, so that is to say, making things that are in physical installations in places that are cool that you can also like interact with.
Okay.
So think of like embedded games. Um,
Okay.
uh, Going to a let's see if and do I have any examples of that recently? Um, I mean, other than like my puzzle boxes, not super directly, but think of like the sort because all of my escape rooms I built by hand. Um,
Wow.
and I have a shop in El Cajon where it's a full metal prop and wood shop.
Which
Where
you call Spark Forge, right?
I call yeah I call that Spark Forge and I use it for that and also my video games um because also I am working on the video game version of Bajillions which you can play on Discord. It's I a lot
And
of irons
also,
in the
aren't you
fire.
working on Party Sparkers?
Yes, Party Sparkers. That is the pack that Bajillions will be inside of that I'll be using to sell on Steam as part of a 3 pack.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's basically a lot of things I'm juggling to keep in the air, hopefully to through all of them eventually uh, create fun entertainment for people and rent.
Well, interesting. I think if they go into Steam and look up Party Sparkers, they can put a like. Doesn't that help
Yes, you
you?
can wish list it
Wish list.
on
Yeah.
Steam. That's the way that you interact with the game that isn't published yet, um, and it does help, especially with motivation.
Okay. Well, good. Well, hopefully we can get people to go and do that. All right. Well, we're close to the end of time, so I have just real quick. Uh, we have our. This is our. We're table for two, where strangers become friends and friends turn into family. And this is our table for two information for people who are wanting to uh, contact us. And we're led by these two wonderful people, and you can find us at tablefor2.games. But most importantly, we got your information. I apologize. I had some technical difficulty, but we'll try to make sure we add in your Facebook link. But everyone should go to puzzlarium.com, sign up for your newsletter. You got, as you said, you got your blog there. It's really interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff on that. Um, but just want to say thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I'm amazed at all the different plates you have spinning, and that's really really cool. So thank you for your time today, and look forward to doing another one where I definitely want to dig into some of the stuff you've created. So thank you.
Of course.